The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the murder of a father of three named Eric Richins. Just before he died, he drank a Moscow Mule that prosecutors say was laced with poison. Here's the story. Or was it a... Eric and Kouri Richins seemed to be living the perfect little life. The attractive young couple had 3 young boys and were doing very well financially, living in Utah. They traveled, had a beautiful home, and spent a lot of family time with their boys. But beneath the exterior, something else was happening. Family members say Eric suspected his wife of trying to kill him, giving him food and drinks laced with poison. Eric got so suspicious that he changed his life insurance and his will to give his money to his sister, who he trusted to take care of the kids. Now prosecutors say Eric was right. He died in March of 2022, a victim of fentanyl poisoning. Then, after his death, Kouri wrote a book for her children to help them deal with the loss of their father. And just after the release of that book, Kouri was arrested and charged with the murder of Eric. This is a case that you look at. There's going to be some questions about the motive on why Kouri Richins would allegedly do this, and then questions about how she allegedly did this. This is not a clear-cut case. Obviously, prosecutors believe they have the evidence to prove it, but this is going to be a hotly contested, hard-fought case. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who joins us tonight. Let's talk about the evidence, because we've got to start with the evidence, right? What is the evidence that prosecutors say they have against Kouri Richins?
Well, Vinnie, prosecutors say that Kouri poisoned her husband Eric by slipping him 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in that cocktail that she made for him back in March of 2022. Now, as you said, when we talk about evidence, we got to start with motive, and prosecutors believe that this motive was financially based. Now, they believe also that Kouri began plotting Eric's murder in January of that year, 2022. That's when she tried to change his life insurance policy. And prosecutors also say she bought 4 life insurance policies in her husband's name without his knowledge from the years 2015 to 2017, with the benefits totaling to around $2 million. Vinnie. Now, Eric alerted his family, telling them he believed someone was trying to kill him during this time. And he also went as far as saying, Vinnie, he told them if anything were to happen to him, detectives should look at Kouri, his own wife. Those are his words, I should say. Now, investigators say part of Kouri's motive, of course, was financial, and that she, quote, mistakenly believed she would inherit Eric Richins' estate. Now, prosecutors say Eric found out that Kouri had made these major financial moves without his knowledge, including spending a total of more than $350,000 as she pursued this career in real estate, which was really her trying to flip houses. Now, Vinnie, we move from motive to opportunity. Now, the state's key witness in this case is Richins' housekeeper, this woman named Carmen Lauder. Now, she has told investigators that she's the one who sold the lethal fentanyl to Richins back in 2022, a total of 3 times, Vinnie. Now, in exchange for that information, Ms. Carmen got immunity in this case, but let's take a listen to investigators and prosecutors explain how they believe Kouri Richins carried out this plan, and also their claims of a prior plan to kill Eric that didn't really go through. Let's take a listen.
She stated that the last time that she saw Eric alive was between 9:30 and 9:45 p.m. She stated that before going to bed, they had had a drink together to celebrate closing on a house for her business. And one of the children had a nightmare, and that the defendant got out of bed and went to be with that child in their bedroom around 3 a.m. when she woke. She stated she returned to her own bedroom, got into bed, and felt that Eric was cold to the touch. Based on the interviews that we conducted with those who knew Eric well, all stated that he did not use illicit drugs other than consuming THC gummies on occasion.
The defendant learned from the attempt and applied it to the homicide. And we see that with what the court just raised. She wanted something stronger. She learned that whatever she used on Valentine's Day wasn't strong enough, which is why she went back and asked for something stronger. But she had a similar MO, right? You know, her MO is to go to the drug dealer, procure fentanyl, and 2 or 3 days later, 4 days later, administer the fentanyl. That is the same. The drug is the same. The drug dealer is the same. The timing is the same. But she learned. She learned she needed something stronger. She also learned how to administer it. She learned that putting it in a sandwich where Eric Richins could take a bite, feel the effects, set the sandwich down, was not the proper way to administer a fatal dose of fentanyl. Instead, she administered it with a lemon shot, where Eric Richins would throw it back all at once. She says that in her journal article, her journal note at Exhibit 49. And she learns that it takes a truckload of fentanyl to kill him. She learns that one bite in a sandwich isn't enough. It has to be stronger, it has to be administered once, and it has to be a lot.
So, Vinnie, you hear the prosecutors making these claims that she learned from a previous attempt, learned that it wasn't strong enough in this sandwich to put it in a shot or in a cocktail. Seems like the evidence is a little bit stacked against her, considering they said this came from one of her journal entries.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where, you know, you look at it and say, okay, yeah, the evidence is there. How does it play inside of a courtroom? How does it play in front of a jury? All right, Cody's going to stick around. That brings us to the first question in our investigation. It's about the evidence. How strong is the evidence against Kouri Richins? When you talk about the evidence of motive, the evidence of cause, manner of death. Let's bring in our guest who's going to help us answer that question. Former homicide detective, host of The Interview Room with Chris McDonough. Our friend Chris McDonough is with us, and attorney Greg Skordas, who represents the family of Eric Richins and knows so much about this case. Appreciate both of you coming in. Chris, let's talk first about motive. What are your thoughts? There's a financial motive here, it seems. Do you find that to be a compelling motive? I know you don't have to prove it, prosecutors, but juries want to hear it when you're killing the father of your children.
You know, Vinnie, I think at this point, you know, the evidence is moderately strong on motive, right? And of course, the pattern in relationship to that, the financial crimes, the suspicious timing. But I agree with you. I think this is going to be a court battle, and it's going to be an uphill run because the majority of that evidence relies on circumstantial links.
Let me ask you, Greg, and I want to clear this up. It's maybe seem like a minor deal, but from the beginning I was hearing it was a Moscow Mule that was given to Eric Richins, and that's what he drank, and that's what was laced with fentanyl. Now we hear a lemon shot. Is there clarity about exactly how they believe she got the fentanyl, got him to ingest the fentanyl?
I don't know that there's specific clarity about that, Vinnie, but I don't know that there needs to be. We do know that she purchased illegal drugs. We do know that she previously tried to poison him, and we do know that he died of overdose of fentanyl. And so, and you've heard over and over tonight, in just the few minutes we've been on, about motive. She had all the motive in the world, and it's money, money, money. He had threatened and at least talked to people about leaving her. There was a prenuptial agreement that would have limited what she got, and she made very clear and told people repeatedly that she was worth much, much more as a widow than she would be as a divorcee. And that's all the motive you need. And you said correctly, Vinnie, motive isn't isn't an element of a crime. Prosecutor doesn't need to prove it, but the jury sure wants to hear it, and there's motive all over the place in this case.
Absolutely. So, Chris, how concerned would you be in this investigation when it comes to something like this, where there's not, it's not a stabbing, it's not a shooting, but it's a poisoning. So you've got to kind of link these things together. Do you think there's enough to put 2 and 2 together here for this jury through the administer of a drink?
These are always the toughest type of cases, right? Because I don't think they have a link in relationship to the glass, that there was residue on the glass or of any sort. However, one of the things I think they're going to be up against the defense in relationship to is her searching history. How much lethal fentanyl do you need for, basically what's the dosage to kill somebody? That can be very damaging when it's presented.
Yeah, I look at this, Greg. And Greg, why don't you give us an idea about jurors out there, right? Because, ultimately it's going to be the jury that makes the decision. How would you describe the jury pool? Are these people who lean a certain way or see the world a certain way? How do you think they'll react to this particular set of facts?
It's an interesting county, Vinny, because it has 2 major cities. One is Park City, which you could imagine is an affluent, liberal community. And then there are these rural towns, Colville, Camas, and those are very rural, very sort of conservative towns. And so you're going to get a jury pool, and this is a significant case. So you're going to get a jury pool where you're going to have 6 people on each side. They're ultra conservative, ultra liberal. The defense has tried to move it to a bigger county, which is Salt Lake County. But the judges said, no, we think we get a fair jury up here in Summit County, even though it's a smaller venue, even though it's a smaller jury pool. And all you really need is a group of jurors who will say at the outset, I can put aside anything I've heard, any preconceived notions I have, and weigh the case solely on the evidence that I hear at this trial.
All right, guests are staying with us. Up next is the drug dealer's news story devastating for the prosecution.
The Court TV podcast will return.
This last year has been a living hell for our family. We have watched as Kouri has paraded around portraying herself as a living widow and victim while trying to profit from the death of my brother.
Incredibly sad. That's Eric Richins' sister, Amy, in court. And don't forget, just before she got arrested, she writes a children's book about, losing your parent and how a child can better grieve. And she goes on like the local television station to promote this book. And then that's at the point that she ends up getting arrested. And I was like, what is going on here? Is she attempting to commit a murder and then write a book and profit from the whole thing? All right, now we've got a big new development in the case. So let's check back in with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. All right, Cody, what is this new development?
Well, Vinny, remember prosecutors say that Kouri Richins bought the fentanyl from the housekeeper, Carmen Lauber. Well, Carmen eventually told police that she got the fentanyl from this alleged drug dealer named Robert Crozier, who eventually himself admitted to police that he sold Lauber fentanyl 2 times back in 2022. Now, he admitted to that in May of 2023. Well, now his story has slightly changed, but Vinny, it's a slight change that makes a whole lot of impact. So in this affidavit presented by the defense, this is Robert Crozier's new story in his own words. It says, quote, on May 4th, 2023, I had been in jail for a short time and was detoxing from drug use. I do not have any personal recollection of the details of that interview, although I have since been told that I agreed that I had sold fentanyl to Carmen Lauber in 2022 on 2 occasions. In early April of 2025, I was asked to meet with 2 people from the Summit County Attorney's Office. I believe that both individuals were prosecutors, and they told me they were prosecuting Kouri Richins. I believe that one of them was Brad Bloodworth. I cannot recall the name of the other individual who was at the meeting, but it was a man with a beard. I was sober at that meeting and had been sober for over 3 months. We met at Starbucks Coffee in downtown Salt Lake City. I believe that it was a Starbucks on 80 South Main Street, Salt Lake City, Utah. Mr. Bloodworth and the other individual asked me if I had sold fentanyl to Carmen Lauber. I told them no. I sold OxyContin to Carmen Lauber on 2 occasions in early 2022. I told them I met her at the Maverick and Draper both times to sell her the pills. Excuse me. I told them that I was certain that I had sold Carmen Lauber OxyContin 30 milligram pills, otherwise known as Roxy's or Roxy 30s. They asked me several times if I was sure, and I told them yes, I was sure I sold her OxyContin, Vinny. So why is this important? Well, it's important because Eric Richins died from fentanyl poisoning, not OxyContin poisoning. And Kouri Richins' defense says that this interview, this prosecution that took this interview with Mr. Crozier, they held this key evidence from them. And the defense goes as far as to say that they violated their ethical duties, saying, quote, this not only negates Ms. Richins' guilt, but completely eviscerates the prosecution's own theory that Ms. Richins procured the fentanyl that ultimately killed her husband. This was not an oversight. This was a continuing and knowing concealment. It is not a blemish on the fruit. It is a rot at the core, poisoning the whole harvest of justice. Now, Vinny, attorneys are asking for Richins to have bail. She's been denied bail twice, but because of this, they're asking that this is grounds for bail, and they're also asking that the communications that the prosecution had with Crozier be disclosed as well. So, big development there. Similar story, but 2 different drugs.
Yeah, huge story. Thanks so much. All right, brings us to our next question, and it's about this new story. Is the drug dealer's new story devastating for the prosecution? This is the man who allegedly supplied the fentanyl to the maid who supplied the fentanyl to Kouri Richins. Back here to help us with our investigation, former homicide detective, host of The Interview Room, Chris McDonough, and attorney Greg Skordas, who represents the family of Eric Richins. All right, Greg, give us some perspective on this. When I first heard it, I was like, well, wait a minute. This could be very problematic if it breaks up that chain that prosecutors wanted to present of where the fentanyl came from that ended up killing Eric Richins. What are your thoughts here?
I don't think it makes any difference at all. 2 things, Vinny. One, the prosecution obviously did disclose that because they know that they talked to this man and that he disclosed earlier that he sold fentanyl. Now he's changing his story. Who knows which time he's telling the truth or for what reason he's making up this story. But I'll tell you something else, Vinny, that people aren't talking about. And you ask any DEA agent in America what the OxyContin is that is being sold on the street, and they'll tell you it's pressed fentanyl. And the reason for that is it's so much cheaper. It's so much easier to get. It's so much more potent that you can cut it and you can make it look exactly like Oxy. I've seen it. I've seen these Oxy pills or purported Oxy pills that are fentanyl. So sometimes these dealers don't know exactly what they're selling because you can sell an Oxy pill for much more than you can sell fentanyl. So all you have to do is change the dynamic of it, change the makeup of it, change the color of it. You buy presses. That you can buy those anywhere, and you can make fentanyl look just like Oxy. So sometimes these drug dealers don't even know what they're selling.
So he could be telling the truth, but he doesn't know what the actual truth is. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Greg 1,000%, and those are called blues. These cartel dealers are able to create these, pills and put them into the hands of their, distribution points. And a lot of times, to what Greg's saying, they don't even know what they're selling. The magic word here, though, for the jury is going to be drug dealer. And he's going to have a hard time getting out of that conversation.
Yeah, to me, it gives you an explanation. Obviously, it's not best case scenario. So here's the question, Greg. Is the allegation going to be that Kouri specifically was seeking fentanyl, or that she was just seeking drugs to OD Eric with?
The latter, Vinny, that she was trying to find a way to poison her husband. I think that's the state's theory. She's presumed innocent. Let's face that.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now, the state's theory, and you've been very good about that. But the state's theory is that she purchased drugs. She purchased enough drugs that she knew would cause his death. And that's exactly what happened here, is that he died from an overdose of fentanyl. What she was buying, I don't know that it really mattered what she was buying, what she thought she was buying. She knew it was an opioid. She knew it was poisonous. She knew that the quantity would be lethal. And she knew that this is the state's theory, of course, and that what she had done previously wasn't quite enough. It just made him sick, and that she needed to get over that hurdle. And she even asked for give me the Michael Jackson stuff, if you recall, which wasn't even oxy or fentanyl. She just wanted whatever it was going to take to do the job. That's the state's theory.
Yeah, the Michael Jackson stuff is propofol, and that's a whole different ball game. So, Chris, let me ask you, as an investigator in a case like this, how much effort would you put towards trying to disprove that he could have OD'd on his own?
Not much, to be honest with you, based on the circumstances as they exist. And I think, once they get him on the stand, this witness, you never want to see an unreliable witness. But I go back to what Greg was saying. The DA is going to have to deal with what they have, and I think the jury is going to see right through it.
All right, Chris McDonough, Greg Skordas, great to see you both. Thank you so much as we get closer and closer to this case and others that you help us with all the time as well. Still to come, will the walk the dog letter get Kouri Richins convicted?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the death of Eric Richins, a man who loved being a father and wanted to keep his family together, but he suspected his wife wanted him dead. Then he died. Here's the story. Kouri Richins was working at Home Depot when she met her husband, Eric. Eric owned an extremely successful company and was doing very well financially. Eric and Kouri fell in love and started a family. They were raising 3 young boys when the marriage hit the rocks. There was tension over money connected to Kouri's struggling house flipping business and issues of infidelity. Things got so bad, Eric thought Kouri was trying to poison him. Eric died of fentanyl poisoning after drinking a Moscow Mule prepared by Kouri. Prosecutors say she laced the drink to get his money, but Kouri claims her innocence and may argue that Eric had a drug problem and overdosed. Either way, there are now 3 little boys without a dad and with a mom accused of murder. There have been some unusual developments in this case, and some of them after the arrest of Kouri Richins. One of them is this writing that they discovered in her jail cell. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who's still with us. People have referred to this as the so-called walk the dog letter. So why don't you walk us through the walk the dog letter, Cody?
Well, Vinny, it's this handwritten letter that was found in Kouri Richins' jail cell. It was to her mother, and it just so happened across the top to have big, bold letters that say, walk the dog, with these exclamation points before it gets into the body of the letter. We see video here now. That's police going into her cell. This is around the time that they discovered the letter and brought it out of there. Now, prosecution says that this letter is evidence of witness tampering because the contents of the letter to her mother essentially give her instructions to tell her brother to give this false testimony. But the defense says that this letter is part of some bigger fictional book that she was writing, and, just another book that she was writing, telling this whole story. Now, what have you, people write different stories of all assortments, but the defense also say that it was illegally read and obtained by police, claiming attorney-client privilege. But Vinny, what I want to do now is play a little bit of this letter for our viewers so they can make sense of the important parts of this letter for themselves. Let's take a listen to it.
She wants to link Eric getting the drugs and pills from Mexico, so we need some kind of connection. Her private investigator is doing some research on the ranch cartel place Eric would stay at. Here's what I'm thinking, but you have to talk to Ronnie. He would probably have to testify to this, but it's super short, not a lot to it. He will need to talk to Skye at the meeting next week. Upon information and belief, just like they say, a year prior to Eric's death, Ronnie was over watching football one Sunday, and Eric and Ronnie were chatting about Eric's Mexico trips. Eric told Ronnie he gets pain pills and fentanyl from Mexico from the workers on the ranch, but not to tell me because I would get mad because I always said he just gets high every night and won't help take care of kids. Ronnie should have texts from Eric talking about getting high as well. Eric told Ronnie he keeps them in an allergy pill bottle in his work truck so I wouldn't find them. Ronnie never told me about the conversation. Eric finally told me and asked if Carmen could get him some. Eric never wanted anyone to know he had an issue, especially get caught. He always wanted Kouri to go down for him. Reword this however he needs to make the point just to include it all. The connection has to be made with Mexico and the drugs. Ronnie will have the messages to prove Eric confided in him about getting high. He can be short and to the point, but it has to be done. When you talk to Ronnie about this, meet up with him in person. I worry sometimes your house and phone are bugged. Tell him I need him to do this. Bring me home, and then we will get those damn bitches. We're so close to the end. Let's push through. Have the conversation with Ronnie before he meets with Sky. Then tell him to tell Sky at the meeting about the conversation. Hang in there. We're almost there. Love you to the moon.
I don't know, Vinny. Ronnie's her brother. That sounds a bit instructional to me. I mean, like I said, people write stories of all different assortments, but we'll see how this plays out in court if it's presented as evidence.
Yeah, like you're using the name of your brother, you're using the name of your lawyer at the time, who now is no longer on the case. All right, so obviously everyone got wind of this. It became very public. What is Kouri Richins' family saying about this walk the dog letter?
Well, they are still proclaiming her innocence, Vinny. Her mother and her brother are still sticking by her side. Let's take a listen to both of them talk about proclaiming her innocence, and also the brother is specifically asked about this letter in this soundbite we're about to play. Let's take a listen.
I know her innocence, and that's all that matters. And it will come out. It's just time.
How difficult is it to sit in there and hear a lot of the allegations unfolding from the prosecutor?
The allegations, they're hard to listen to, but at the same time, I know that they're just that. They're just allegations. They have nothing substantial on her at all. If and when this actually goes to trial, I have complete confidence that we have all of the proof to disprove everything that they're trying to claim.
What do you have to say about the letter that the state's really going after?
I think they're going after that pretty hard. I don't really have that much to say about it. From what Kouri explained to me, it was just a fictitious letter. I don't have a whole lot to really say about it. I think they're trying to harp on that quite a bit because it obviously makes her look bad, even though there's several explanations for it.
So she wasn't trying to convince you to say that you had this conversation with Eric?
No, not at all. You know, I've been outside of my mom and the closest one to their family, and trust me, I know everything that went on there. I don't need to be said or convinced to say anything that's not true.
Why are you so certain that Kouri did not do this?
Because I know my sister. My sister, she can't even squash a spider. She loved Eric. She loved her family more than anything. And I hate to say that, unfortunately, she's being painted in this light for really bad reasons, really selfish reasons. And so, we've got to get through that. Again, I know my sister very, very well, and anyone that actually knows her knows that she's just incapable of doing that.
So if Kouri did not do this to Eric, how do you think Eric died with that thing?
My thoughts on it is accidental overdose. That's my opinion. Could have been a number of things, but that seems to be the simplest answer to me, and that's typically what the right one is. The simplest answer is typically the correct answer.
Does that surprise you? Did you know that he allegedly was into that or would want to take fentanyl? Can't answer that, sorry. What do you see as the biggest challenge moving forward for Kouri's case?
As far as case goes and facts go, I don't see a problem. The biggest problem, again, that I feel that we're going to run into is a tainted jury pool. That is honestly my only worry as far as what they're going to try to bring forth as what they're going to call evidence versus the simplest explanations that we have. It just says how silly everything they're alleging is.
What do you want people to know about Kouri?
First of all, that she's innocent. She absolutely did not and could never do this. She has been a model citizen of Summit County, in Wasatch County as well. She's an amazing mother. She's an amazing wife. Great sister, obviously, to us. And it just breaks our heart that she's going through this, but I think that she's strong enough to get through it because she knows, again, the truth is on her side.
So Vinnie asked about the letter. He said he didn't have much to say about it. He says Kouri was not trying to convince him of anything and goes as far as to say that Kouri can't even squash a spider, clearly standing by her side till the end of this, Vinnie.
Yeah, another interesting part there when he was asked, did he think that Eric may have overdosed on his own, and did he know anything about his use cut off by someone in the crowd there, perhaps a lawyer? Thanks, Cody. All right, let's get to our next question on our investigation, which is, will the walk the dog letter get Kouri Richins convicted? Is it that straightforward? Is it up for interpretation? Here to help answer that question, psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey, and the host of the Hidden True Crime podcast and YouTube channel, Lauren Mathias, with us as well. Lauren, what are your thoughts about that walk the dog letter? Is it up for interpretation, or is it pretty straightforward to you?
You know, it's pretty straightforward to me. Let's start with that. Could it be up for interpretation when it comes to the court and trial? Sure. Could the defense say it's up for interpretation? Sure. But then you throw in, you know, the 26 other fraud charges, and you throw in the fact that Carmen Lauber said that Kouri wanted fentanyl, and you throw in the affair, and you throw into how severely in debt she was, and the money motives, and you throw in all this stuff. And, you know, as a whole, I think that then the court and the jury will interpret the walk the dog letter probably likely like I'm interpreting it right now when you put all the pieces of the puzzle together. That's my thought.
Dr. Janie Lacey, if we take it at its face, the walk the dog letter, right? The plain interpretation, not that it's a fictional piece of work, but it's like actual instructions. What does it tell you about the family dynamic or about the defendant that, again, this is the accusation, that she could write a letter like this and her brother and her mother would carry all of this out for her?
Vinnie, I think this letter is her playbook for reasonable doubt, except she got caught writing it. So when I think about this, what you had just shared, it's one of the most, in my opinion, damaging pieces of evidence that I've seen in a murder case. This isn't just evidence. It's essentially a confession of Kouri's, I would say, consciousness of guilt and her intent to manufacture testimony. So when I think about it, from what you just shared, right, there's instructions to fabricate testimony about Eric getting drugs from Mexico. She tells her mother to coach her brother to lie about Eric's drug use. And then I believe there was a phrase that you had shared, a phrase that to take vague notes so she can remember. That was, to me, clear witness coaching. And then the connection to be made between Mexico and drugs to build a false narrative. So, and if it truly is a fiction, then if it's fiction, then why specific instructions to her mother? Like, why is it hidden in a jail cell? And why call the family to explain after it's discovered, right? Fiction doesn't include walk the dog coded language for secret communication. So when I think about consciousness of guilt, I think innocent people don't manufacture testimony. And it shows to me that she knows prosecution case is strong. So in my opinion, she's creating this exact alternative narrative that would exonerate her. And just, it's found out. So the fiction book defense in itself is fiction designed to explain away, to me, witness tampering. And she's not just accused of murder. I mean, this letter shows she tried to frame her dead husband.
Yeah, and Lauren, if this letter had gotten through and the instructions were followed, then it becomes a real big deal inside the courtroom. It plays much larger. Obviously, that's not going to happen here. And in the opposite impact, it becomes some of the most devastating evidence against her, evidence that they didn't have before they charged and arrested her, almost like confirmation evidence for prosecutors.
Absolutely. This is her playbook, right? Hey, by the way, we need reasonable doubt, everyone. So get Ronnie to say that Eric liked to go to Mexico. I don't know how you can get more clear than what she's trying to do. Let Sky know, her attorney that's no longer her attorney. And by the way, but before you do that, talk to Ronnie and let him know it's cringy to actually think about her saying, oh, this is a fictional book. And, for them to then say, well, this is attorney-client privilege when she's saying that a fictional book is also kind of a problem, I think. But yeah, it's about as clear cut of evidence as I think one could get, no matter how the defense wants to twist it.
Yeah, and she had a great lawyer that is no longer her lawyer, and she mentions her in that letter. I'm telling you, if I'm in those shoes, not that I defended criminals, but if I was, and my client is trying to get someone to lie to me, I may not want to represent that person anymore. But I have no idea what happened there. But I'm just saying the way I would have handled the situation. All right, guests are staying where they are. Coming up next, did Kouri Richins get the idea from her mother?
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Please do not allow Kouri to take advantage and make a mockery of our justice and legal system anymore. She has done enough. Please do not allow Kouri to hurt Eric's memory, our family, friends, and community anymore. We have been through enough.
This battle has gotten very personal for the family of Eric Richins, and they're obviously heartbroken and devastated by what they believe Kouri has done in the murder of Eric, and there's a lot of bad blood there. But speaking of the families, if you go over to Kouri's side, this is not, and she is not, the first in her family to have a loved one die from an overdose, whether it's done on purpose or accidental. There's another overdose here involving her mother and someone that her mother was with. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. All right, Cody, give us the story behind Kouri's mother and her romantic partner who OD'd.
Yeah, Vinny, so there's some eerie similarities between the two stories here. Kouri Richins' current situation and the mother situation that took place back in 2006. Now, the mother was dating this woman. She was romantically involved with a woman. This woman ended up suspiciously ODing on oxycodone. Now, Kouri's mother, Lisa Darden, has not been charged with anything. All of this was learned through investigating Eric Richins' death while they were interviewing people close to Eric and Kouri. But again, Lisa Darden has not been charged with anything. Now, again, her romantic partner died of an oxycodone overdose, and it was documented that she did have prescriptions for these pills, but it was also documented that she had a slight addiction issue. But detectives say that this woman was not in recovery at the time of the overdose, so they ruled out an accidental overdose. So just really interesting, Vinny, but there's two kickers here to this story. Lisa Darden was named as the beneficiary of the woman's estate just a short while before this overdose, which is a similar motive dealing with the finances as the prosecution's trying to place on Kouri Richins. And the other kicker, Vinny, is that police say they found conversations between Kouri and her mother, Lisa Darden, where Lisa was expressing her disdain for Eric Richins. Now, again, Lisa has not been charged with anything. There's been no connection, linked her to this overdose, but it's just there are just some weird coincidences here between both situations.
Yeah, and it can be interpreted in many different ways. Cody Thomas, great reporting. Thank you so much. Let's get to the next question in our investigation. Did Kouri Richins get the idea from her mother? Right? Like directly from her mother, or just knowing what her mother went through? Did it inspire her? Is it a coincidence? Here to help with our investigation, psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey, and the host of the Hidden True Crime podcast and YouTube channel, Lauren Matthias. Dr. Janie Lacey, and this can be interpreted in many different ways. I think we have to, she's presumed innocent, but for the purposes of this conversation, looking at it from the prosecution's theory of the case, right? That she purposely poisoned her husband, Kouri did. What are your thoughts about whether or not she could have gotten the idea from her mother, been inspired by it? How do you think that plays? Because it goes back to 2006.
You know, Vinny, my thoughts is 2 overdose deaths, 2 financial beneficiaries, 1 family. That's not tragedy. That's a pattern. So as Cody was sharing, you know, what I learned about Lisa, her background, the pieces to me fall into place. We have a mother whose romantic partner died of a suspicious overdose in 2006, and where Lisa became the estate beneficiary shortly before the death. Now, 16 years later, her daughter husband dies the same way. To me, this isn't a coincidence. It's a blueprint. So I think about the psychology of learned behavior. We know that children model primarily problem-solving behavior from parents. So if Lisa was successful in, you know, staging this overdose in 2006, potentially it normalized this method for Kouri. She grew up knowing that, 1, this method works. 2, it looks accidental. And 3, you can get away with it. So to me, it's this criminal sophistication that potentially could have been learned at home.
Lauren, what are your thoughts here about any potential connection? And again, presumed innocent, not charged. I don't hear Lauren. I don't know if the microphone.
My microphone wasn't working. Am I back?
You're back.
I'm back. The similarities, Vinny, I agree, cannot be ignored. There is a pattern, and it's the reason why it was written in the affidavit. I mean, even clearly, police can't ignore it. Again, alleged, right? But you have, if this was indeed not an accidental overdose, and we're all speculating here, then why would they not say, gosh, this was successful, it worked out, perhaps we can try it again? And I think that we're all going to wonder forever about this situation. And then you throw in that Lisa Darden was at Kouri Richins' home the night that Eric Richins passed away. There, you know, part of that sort of investigation that first night. She shows up, she's there. It's hard to look away.
Lauren Matthias, Dr. Janie Lacey, thank you both so much. We'll see you again soon. You know, all of a sudden, this case is not as strong as I first believed it was. The fentanyl is a crucial element of this prosecution. This doesn't mean that Kouri Richins will walk, but it does mean prosecutors need to work that much harder to convince the jury that the evidence they have is enough to connect Kouri Richins to the poison that killed Eric. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.